All right. So today we're joined by someone whose connection with water goes far beyond the physical element. She's turned her passion for water into a movement which seeks to not only educate but empower humanity. She's a visionary, a healer, and the founder of the Worldwide Water Tribe, a sanctuary where she expresses her passion of helping souls reconnect to water as the original source of physical, mental, and spiritual nourishment. She's the super raw and unfiltered water woman, Kimberly. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, brother. It's such an honor. I just want to open the show, if I could, with the universal water prayer.
Please.
Thank you. So, this just is a beautiful, some people call it intention, prayer, understanding that we're structuring our water to move forward. That's for the highest and greatest good of water and all beings. And so, the universal water prayer that we use is love, gratitude, harmony, healing, conscious awakening for all beings. Yay!
Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I guess, to get started, I would like to know what brought you here. Like, how did this journey first start?
Well, to start with, I'm a triple Scorpio. And the journey where I actually found water occurred when I went to a music festival in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And it was about a week-long festival. I brought about 40 gallons of water because I'm always particular about just bringing lots of water with me. And this festival was at it was like an old skiing grounds, so it wasn't well kept, I guess you could say. And I used to be an artistic glass blower, and so I was there on that purpose. But with the water that I brought, I just always had it with me. And so as I was vending, it was about the second day in, they were selling like these $5 water bottles, and there's just really no facilities at the location. The bathrooms that were there, the water coming out, it was a almost like a yellowish color with particles in it. And most of the people there were very young. I would say in the age range between probably 18 to 25. And so what I was witnessing was that these young people were running out of water and running out of money within a couple of days. And this young man, as he was coming out, started yelling, "They're trying to kill us! They're trying to kill us!" And was turning white and sweating profusely. And I knew there was something wrong. So I was like, "Hey, brother, come here. I have some water." He's like, "No, I don't want this water." And that's when he showed me the water. And I said, "No, this is mountain water from North Carolina." And he sat down and drank it. And immediately his color tones came back, and he started looking normal. What I could say was normal at that time. And this all happened very quickly, this whole like scene. And right when he sat down and started drinking water, about two or three kids turned around. They said, "You have water?" And they walked over to me and they had bottles. They're like, "Can I fill it up? I'll give you a couple bucks." And I was like, "Well, yeah." And I wasn't doing good with my glass. Like, it was one of the worst shows I actually had. And I was worried because I used all my money to get there. It was about 600 miles. And so when people started coming up and asking for water, um, I don't know how to explain it. It just became a thing. People started bringing their friends, saying, "Hey, here's the water woman. This is where I got the water." And all of a sudden, people started finding me. And because of that, my glass started selling. And I started having this really cool, like, area. Sorry about my puppy in the background. Um, but I started having this really cool area, like a watering hole, where people were gathering to talk and find each other, but mainly to get water. Well, in this, the cops came. And when the cops came, security came. Um, they were looking for me. They're like, "Who's selling the water?" And I was, I couldn't wrap my head around it because I thought they were actually worried about my glass. But they told me to shut it down and I can't sell water and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. This is crazy. But kids kept coming up to me, and I'm not going to not give somebody water, you know? And so by the second day, it was even hotter. It was like 98 degrees, and it was really bad because kids were really running out of water. So around the mid part of the day, um, and this all happened very fast. I had a large crowd around me. The show was starting, and people were going in, and I just see all, like, it wasn't just a couple security guards this time. It was like an army of cops coming to shut me down because I was helping people with water. All right. And these kids, it was incredible. They basically made a barrier in front of me. These brothers grabbed, because water's heavy, man. Water's really heavy. You can't just grab your stuff and go. But I grabbed my glass. These brothers grabbed the water, and they walked me up into the trees and sat me next to this tree because the cops were really there to like arrest me for helping people with
Wow.
water. And that's when I realized I got to get out of here. So what ended up happening, all these kids found me bringing their containers. They knew I'm like, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm out. Because I only had a little bit of glass left, and I just wanted to leave. I was so scared because I was really far from home. I was there by myself. I didn't have anybody to call because I really don't have friends or family. So I wanted to be wise and just read the signs and symbols and leave. And in that, like within 20 minutes, I literally had sold all my water, and I didn't sell it because I was giving it away, but kids were literally putting money in my hand so I'd gas money to get home. All my glass got sold, and I walked out of there the happiest I ever been in my life. And it wasn't because I had fat cash in my pockets. It was because I help people with water. And my water is so pristine. Like where I live, it's unlike any water in the world. And it was such an honor to give these young people water. And they had such a great time. So I just drove home with the idea of like, wow, I gotta take these kids water. And I started taking water to music festivals, and that's kind of how my journey began. And so even my name, Water Woman, was actually given to me by my tribe. Like the kids were saying, hey, there's the Water Woman. That's where we get the water. So it's just really interesting how this journey with water kind of happened at me. And I was there as an observer, but also as a participant, making sure people had clean water to live and not go into the kid. So let me just back up real quick and then I'll pause. The kid that ended up being sick, number one fan, by the way, he was like, he brought people to me all week long. And kids were putting 20s in my hand for being able to fill up a couple gallons of water. They were so grateful. And so that kid was a type 1 diabetic, I came to find out. And he was going into shock, literally. His body was going into shock because he did not have water and he knew he was dehydrating. He didn't even have time, in his opinion, the way he was feeling and everything, to leave the mountain and get to a hospital. The water saved his life. And so I want to be very clear. I don't heal nobody. The water does all of it. It is the water that is the essence of our being. It is the water that flows through every living being and unifies and unites us all. And it is the water that loves us so much. It allows us to use it and, in some cases, abuse it in any form and still helps us and heals us. So that's how I found water. And then I found Emoto, and then I found Veda Austin, and then I found Victor Schauberger, and then I found all the OGs in the water community, right? So water kind of found me, and that's what was kind of cool with my journey. It was something that was really organic. My puppy is keeps jumping in my lap. She might have to walk outside. So if you hear me rustling around, that's what it is.
No, that's okay. That's a beautiful story. It's quite divine, right? You had mentioned in the story that at this point in time you already had pretty high quality water. So before this journey, you already knew the importance of the quality of your water, I'm assuming.
Yes, it tasted different. It was it's hard to explain. It was just the most pristine water. People that would come over to my house and visit, for example, one of my friends that grew up in California, my father, who we're all originally from California, these people had what they thought was psoriasis, and they took a shower or bathed in this water, and it was cleared up within a couple days, completely gone. Something that they had most of their life and tried to take medication for, could never quite clear it up. It's always water. The solution and the source is always look at the water.
So at that point in time, the synchronicity of you having that type and quality of water was just that, a synchronicity. It wasn't actually
Exactly.
something you sought. Wow,
No, not at
beautiful.
the time. Yeah.
How do you personally go about sourcing your water today?
Well, I'm very lucky where I live in the Appalachian Mountains is a crystalline structured mountain. And so my well is about 369 feet deep. And that's also synchronicity because this was all done before I moved to this property. The original place where I lived was across town, same uh, same little town, but I moved into the house I'm at now with my family, my mother and father. And so when we made that move, the water here, because it's at a higher elevation, even became more, I don't even know how to say, alive and
Hmm.
pristine. And so that was when I started being shown, or I guess shown, the language of water, and communication with water became a conscious development that truly transformed my life. And because I understood what was happening and how healing was occurring at a scientific level, cellularly, but spiritually.
Yeah. How do we begin to understand the language of water?
The language of water is a feeling language. We already do it. Now, this is what's really cool, okay? The language of water is the original language before math, before music. And so we all participate in it in what might be goosebumps or chills or butterflies. It's a cellular communication that's occurring with your waters. It's almost like your heart and gut pick up what's happening in the environment before your brain can process and understand what's actually happening. And that's why it's important to, when you hear people say, follow your gut or follow your heart, that's an important intuitional communication that's occurring at a cellular level. But when you start consciously communicating with water, like what Veda Austin is doing, what Dr. Emoto did, then water starts communicating back. And that's what we're witnessing with someone like Veda Austin and what she is being able to produce with water, which is water doing a mimicry of communication. So, for example, it's like when you learn a language. Um, You might say bathroom, and if you're learning Spanish, you say baños. Or I'm not sure. I don't know what the language is, but what I'm trying to say is there's a mirroring that occurs when you learn. And that's how a communication and dialogue can begin. That's what water's doing with us. It's like this beginning stage of saying, wow, if I show water a picture of this flower and you freeze the water, and now that water is frozen as a picture of the flower, there's a communication occurring, a conscious communication occurring. And so as you start doing the language of water, it allows you to feel the truth when found, which is something we all do already. But when you start consciously really tapping into your waters, and what is occurring at a cellular level when communicating with frequency, whether light or sound, then you start understanding how water is in all things. And if that's how consciousness moves through the waters in order for communication, unconditional love for all beings happens instantaneously because we're
Wow.
all water.
Yeah. You've described water as creator consciousness. What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, when this is the other part that was wonderful about taking my water out to festivals and going to shows and meeting people, the stories that people brought to me about water was incredible. And then so what ended up happening for me, I started looking at all the religions around the world, but I started looking at just the water part that was spoken of. Because what I started finding is that all the times that water is brought up in the religions, no matter what it is, whether it's part of the creation story or miracles, how miracles occur, or any kind of divine type of occurrence that is happening, water's always involved because water's in everything. Water's the one thing that takes multiple forms. Um, there's more than three phases of water. There's the fourth phase, which is what Dr. Pollock discovered, which is called easy water, which is a gelatinous phase, like what is in our cells. And so when we start seeing how there's different phases of water for us to communicate with and is a part of our planetary atmosphere, then all of a sudden you start seeing how water is literally everything in every phase. Not listen, I'm not making this stuff up, kid.
No, no, no. You are
You know
speaking
what I'm
truth.
saying?
I
I'm
resonate. I
only
resonate.
looking at stuff and pointing to like, oh, look at this. Like for example, look at all the miracles. They're all around water. Not my words, not my religion.
Yeah.
My observation. And so it's a beautiful, that's why it becomes vital to know the source of your water. Because if you don't know the source, it can be tampered with. It could be created into tap water, which stands for to add poison. And it can have an effect on you on ways that most people can't even comprehend. And if you have gut issues or if you have skin issues, if you have brain issues, look at the source of water first. Because I promise, if you do not have a clean source of water in your foundation, no matter what you do to heal yourself, it will always, how can I say, keep occurring unless you change the frequency and make sure that source of the water that you're starting with, that foundation, is clean. This is why around the world, many people who drink from muddy waters get sick because they don't know the source of the water. Yet it's the only water that they know to get. And so that's why this movement, this communication, and this language is universal because we all require the exact same thing, which is clean water.
Now, for those who live in like urban or like limited resource areas, what's a realistic first step towards sovereignty in water?
Again, knowing the source. Where's it coming from? Know
Yeah.
what's happening at your local water plants. Is it a closed loop system? A lot of people don't even know what that means. Places like LA, where I used to grow up and be from, but many of the big cities around the world, they actually take wastewater and turn it back into drinking water, calling it
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
That's
I
why,
mean, in some ways it's kind of, easier said than done, right? For some communities in some areas. I live in a state where water is prevalent, right? But it's a peninsula. I live in Florida, so we don't have the best water. I don't think that I've ever actually drank pure water from, let's say, coming down from the mountains kind of thing. I don't I'm sure that it will be quite different than what I'm drinking now. But even if I were to do some homework and go about my way to find some quality water, I think it'll be quite difficult even for myself. What do you have any sources where you can purchase online, like trusted providers?
There, yes, there are quite a few, and that is one of the main reasons why I'm building the online platform community the way I am, that we can find each other. Because I don't want the water to compete with the water anymore. Like, for example, I love your question because see, it seems like a simple question, but it's actually quite deep and profound when you start looking at your scenario. And so I started realizing when I got into water, it's hard for me to answer people's questions like this because number one, I don't know where you live. I don't know your water resources and these kind of things. And it takes a lot of research actually to have an awareness and the source of your water. But at the same time, there's a lot of places and information that you can turn to these days. So, for example, there's a website called findaspring.org that is phenomenal. You type in your zip code and it will pull up springs that you can take jugs to and fill on your own, usually for free, coming out of a mountain, coming out of a source where people have created a well, or there's a pipeline where there's access to it. And so I highly recommend people to get onto this website. And even if you type in your zip code and it seems like you're in the middle of nowhere and there's just not a source close to you being listed on that website, I would still mark the closest ones in each direction because now you literally know a source of water to go to if anything were to ever happen to where you had to leave your area and didn't know where to go. Well, now you do. You have 4 locations that will take you to the source of water. So there'll be food, ways to have shelter, more importantly, water. And whoever you meet at that location is likely your tribe because they know about water too. So this kind of information becomes important in multiple types of scenarios, whether it's a natural disaster like where I live. Went through Hurricane Helene. I live in one of the worst disaster zones that went through that. We live a place where there's water. And when this happened, because our resources were shut down for months, not weeks or days, months, um, water became just one of the most important necessities when we live in a rainforest. And so when these kind of things occur, another important time will be when martial law is called in the cities and they start shutting cities down. If that ever occurs, go to the source of water. Just pack up your loving family, say, let's go camping. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing with Decode Campouts. True story here. I'm from the city. I'm a hood in the woods.
That's beautiful. That's
Okay.
wonderful.
And
It's
so
good. Go ahead.
we need to learn how to become comfortable in this environment. And when I first started coming out to the woods, as an adult, I was literally afraid of the dark. Like I'm talking shake, my body would be shaking. I'd be shaking. And I'm big. I'm bigger than most men. And, and I practice martial arts and fear does not get me. But this was when you go into the woods at night, it's a different stillness. And if you honor and respect it, you're always going to be safe. But if you just go off into the woods alone, you may not come back. These are the kind of things that I think we need to have a a place to gather once a week, talk about this kind of stuff, find solutions, and figure out what works for people in their area. Some of the great water sources that if you're going to order online, Tourmaline Springs, 1,000%. They literally harvest their water through tourmaline crystals. And then they harvest the crystals sometimes throughout the year, and they'll include them with the water packages, bro. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed, and nobody knows about them. And then there's other companies. There's some local people here doing some great work, and their name is slipping me. They have a green water bottle that's glass, so a lot of people like them. So there's just a lot of water companies and filter systems that should be celebrated. And what kind of makes me sad these days in the water communities is that, there's this big thing going on, like my water's better than your water. Like distilled water is better than spring water. Spring water is better than, there's this whole thing happening. And I get it. However, if we just kept things simplistic, which I believe Creator is, all water is sacred, even the water we flush is some of the most sacred water, and we should be praying over that water every time. So as it connects to other water, it's healing that water source as well. And so if we treated water with conscious respect and understanding why it's vital to know the source of the water, because that becomes the source of your food, and that also becomes the source of your information, which is frequency, sound, and light. Because frequency couldn't exist without water.
Yeah, beautiful. What you were mentioning earlier, when you mentioned, martial law and these events that may be on the horizon, it's scary to think about the water situation. And I guess the reason that I feel a little bit of fear, with the whole water thing is, I have a pretty good water filter, like a water filter system for my drinking
Nice.
water.
Mm-hmm.
But when I put it in my water distiller and I see what's left behind, then it gets me wondering, like, how good of a filter do I need if this is the residue that's left behind from the filtered water? And it's kind of all around us. I shower in city water, so now we have all those chemicals that kind of come in contact with us. So it's something where I kind of have to turn a blind eye, because if not, I'll just go crazy with putting these spells over me. So it's kind of like I have to just kind of be ignorant towards it, at least for now, until I can wrap my head around going to a place that has cleaner water. I kind of have to do with what I have now. So do you have any recommendation for a person as myself that's in that
Yes.
situation?
I love that question. Yeah, we're gonna stuff your sacks with solutions that are good. It's gonna empower you so that wherever you go in the world, you'll always be okay. All right. Number
Cool.
one, bravo on observing what they're doing to water and why it's vital to have a filter in these times. And so what we're learning a lot of times, just because we're filtering the chemicals or the microplastics or the stuff out of the water, um, there's still energetics or frequencies that can also be held within the waters. And so that being said, there has been studies done where they have found living water actually has light that will emanate through certain camera lenses, let's say. And you can see how alive water is through the light source that it reveals. Okay. And so blood is the same way. And so you could do things to water or to blood and see what the result is. Maybe you do electrolysis and see what happens. Maybe you do play a frequency and see what happens. Maybe you add a flower essence to see what happens, oxygen to see what happens. So, with all these studies that were done, they found what the most powerful thing was that actually made water more alive, and which allows it to retain more memory because water's alive and conscious. So when people say water has memory, they're getting close. It has memory because it's alive. And the thing that influenced it the most was prayer. Prayer is what lit it up like Christmas lights, bro. It lit the water up. This is why you can pray for people. And prayer transcends time and space. And all time travel is through the waters. So pray over the water to go back to original, perfected state of creation, which is a universal water prayer, and pray to the water that it completely is in the most highest, original, perfected state of creation structure for your best and highest, healthiest way of being. You put the words there. This is what's beautiful. It's your prayer that is powerful over the water. We have the authority in our words to co create, and water is always the foundation. So, your prayer with all devices, anything, that's why I love all the water devices, all filter systems, all structuring. I don't care how you clean your water, that's beautiful, right? Because everything works. But prayer is the most powerful. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. I love this story. It's in my, when I do my experience the language of water retreats, this is one of the stories I share. But it's a quick story about a monk back in like the 1500s that was imprisoned in a cell, and they were trying to kill him. And so they would give him moldy bread and just putrid water every morning. And he would take that bread and he would take that water and put it on the seal of the cell where the light would hit it. And he would sit there and pray all day over the bread and water. And by night or afternoon, or when he was done with his prayers, the water was clear and the bread was not moldy, because certain things would come, like little mice would come and eat just the mold off the bread. And so he learned how to harmonize with his environment, but it was the prayer that made it so that he was protected. And he actually thrived while he was there. And because of it, then they took him out and took him to the king, and, were asking him, how did you do this kind of thing? So it was protection through prayer, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it definitely does. It definitely does. You know, you once were speaking and mentioned something about floating in water, right? And it was just really beautiful the way that you were explaining that. And before I have you explain that, I'll let you know what I did, right? So I
Ooh.
figured I needed to find a way to do this, to experience what you were speaking of with the floating in water. And so I had the opportunity to go to a water park recently, and I just got my ass inside of a lazy river, and the lazy river was just perfect buoyancy where I was able to float somewhat, not fully. And I really got into some kind of state of calmness within that. So if you'd like to expand on that, like what is that experience? What is your goal when doing something like that? What can we find doing that?
Beautiful. That is just, I mean, that's the water loving you. That's unconditional love. That's what it feels like to be embraced by the creator, in my opinion. And so for me, that's, and I don't, it's weird because I really haven't shared this, but here we go. For me, that's when I get a lot of my downloads. If I can get into what I call that zero gravity singular state. And it's when you can't tell the difference from your hands, where your hand is in the water and where the water begins. Like
Hmm.
you literally cannot feel, like if you become just that very still, super, super still. And I don't do any breathing techniques. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll do some deep breaths. Sometimes I have my eyes open. Sometimes I close my eyes. I just kind of, you know, I just go into the feeling though. It's about, because water is a feeling communication. And so downloads, when I receive my downloads, it's almost like a musical in my head. It's like this whole freaking beautiful translation of the water just showing me something. And then for a long time, like I'm talking like 5 years, when the water was communicating with me, and I would go in maybe with a question, and I'd have this beautiful movie play in my head. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, then I would go out in life, and there'd be confirmation in like threes in different ways of, and it would be the most random thing where I would maybe just be observing the water, or I'll be hearing something on Facebook, or I'll be in a conversation with somebody, and will share something that they had just experienced. So what I have been finding is that water is a form in how we are telepathic as well. And when you get into those states of that calmness, that floating, that place where really, um, I don't know how to say it, but there's just peace beyond understanding. That's where this power of the water starts rushing through you, because then you start recognizing you don't have to have fear over anything, because water will always help you, communicate with you, guide you, and protect you, even in times of distress. And so when we start having this communication with water, then all of a sudden fear, it 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 almost becomes non-existent, because water shows us how spirit travels in the last breath. Just like how water goes from water to vapor into ice, crystalline structure, or whether it's plasma. Plasma is a phase of water that a lot of people don't recognize. Sky ice, waters beneath the waters that are just different viscosities.
Mhm.
So, what water is showing us through all these stages and phases, we too travel. That's why the kids that do the dreaming and can control their dreams and do those kind of spiritual gifts and talents, that is a beautiful example of time travel through the waters. For example, oh, it's okay. Shh. Stop barking, Dottie. Sorry about that. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's quite beautiful, that experience that I had when I was floating, and I'm gonna definitely seek out to do it a bit more in maybe a calmer environment. But I was definitely at peace, as you indicated. It was a sense of peace when I was doing it. Um, a lot of my downloads, they come in the shower. This is very common for a lot of us, but if you are conscious about it, it is a lot easier to tap into that. You know, the idea for this podcast that I have now was created in the shower. I was kind of
Yay.
a little bit lost, like just determining what am I gonna do. And so I kind of went in with the intention where I'm just gonna go and I'm just gonna start talking into this water. And it just hit me out of nowhere, like, why not do a podcast? And I was like, there it is. I was actually listening to a podcast a while ago that spoke about how this person, when they go into the shower, they create mantras for themselves, and they feel that they're charging up the water, and so they visualize the water charging with their voice, and somehow the mantra is like being embedded into them, and it's allowing them to experience life in a certain way and manifest certain things. So I've been incorporating that as well. I haven't seen direct results, not that I can see, but it's something that I'm going to continually incorporate as well. What do you feel about that?
Yes, I love creating um it's really a song and dance with the water. A lot of my creations and it's about taking the time to dream, to daydream, right? To dream it into being is what I like to say. And a lot of that is working with water. Um, Hence why I prayed into the waters, our universal prayer, before I started, because it's structuring the water and putting intention into the water so that water creator consciousness in a sense, almost moves through me and speaks through me. That
Yeah,
it's not my agenda or my words or what I think, but instead it's just kind of flowing what needs to be spoken that way. um, what needs to be transmitted is. And I think you do a wonderful job with that. Jordan, Waters Above, does a wonderful job with flowing consciousness in a transmission type of way. And so we need podcasts like this. We need an alternative reality. We need to build a completely new alternative reality that is not like what is out there. A lot of what I'm doing and dreaming into being is because I don't like anything anymore. And I just can't believe this is my reality. I used to be so happy. I used to love going out. Used to love doing things. It's just all different now. When you start decoding reality, when you start seeing the truth for what it is, then all of a sudden you start recognizing you're either walking somebody else's script that's being almost programmed into you through you, whether it's through our birth date, our family script. There's a lot of scripts that are being run and programs being run. But the second you recognize and can feel and can see, there's a, how can I say, a real state of reality occurring that you don't have to talk to AI as your best friend, that you can hang out together and have wonderful conversations. We need to kind of have a thing where we're bringing traditions and technology together in a good way, where we're utilizing the the good of technology, the good of traditions, and we're bringing both together in the presence of now, in the eternity of now.
I agree. Yeah, I
We're
do feel that the life, life is a little bit weird nowadays, but I can say, at least in my reality, things are shifting in the direction
Mhm.
that I see is best suited for humanity, right? I think that we are here to bring upon the world the light that's necessary. And someone such as yourself that is on a mission, I think that you are part of that as well. It's very honorable what you're doing here. I would like to know a little bit more about the Worldwide Water Tribe, if you'd like to get into that a little bit.
Sure. So the Worldwide Water Tribe was developed because I've been kicked out of every organization, church, you name it. My enthusiasm is such a high vibration that people are like, okay, great, Kim, you've talked enough. Go ahead and be quiet now and, um, read the room. But the thing is this, I'm not going to change for other people, right? And so I was in this part in my life where um, I went, I went to music festivals, had a great time, but I didn't quite like them because there's too much drugs or there's alcohol. There's just shit I'm not into anymore, man. And there's just things that like what people call low vibrations that I just don't enjoy. Going to the movies. I used to love going to the movies. I can't stand it. Certain things I used to like having popcorn and watching shows with my family. Won't do it. Like I won't, people say, "Oh, did you see the Leave the World Behind?" No, it has a infrasonic weapon in it. Number one, that most people don't know about. Number two, by watching it, you're bringing that reality onto the planet. So I won't participate in that or talk about that in any way, shape, or form. And number three, I'm building a new heaven on earth. I'm a new earth, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not participating in that garbage no more. I'm not doing it. I'm like I would literally rather sit on my land and watch my bird feeders every single day for the rest of my life than have to talk to some people in life. And you know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, I was once that person. So I don't want to judge them. I just don't want to participate in the bullshit anymore. So the Worldwide Water Tribe gave me an online place for people to be like, yo, yeah, I like water, right? Yeah, water's cool. Water's fun. Let's start there. I need clean water. And then what happens is people start tapping in to their local essence of and community of water. And there's what's great, a lot of great water communities out there that nobody knows about. Every, a lot of the healing modalities, great things that are out there, nobody knows about it because it's scattered. Our world, our alternative reality, what we're trying to build, it's scattered right now. And they got years, they got centuries of writing this script, and they're way ahead of us. So much so they changed the education structure. They changed the tonality in music. They've changed our food. And they definitely have changed the water. True freedom, actual freedom, not the concept. Okay? Actual freedom is knowing the source of your water, food, and information, which is frequency, sound, and light. If you do not know the source of these things, you are being programmed or poisoned or both. But there is hope and there are solutions. The solutions are always the weapon. Okay? So if you get bit by a snake, what's the anti-venom? Why, it's the venom, of course. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so what we do with the Worldwide Water Tribe, that has now evolved into where my land, where I get my water, is really a sanctuary. Because when people come here, they have profound experiences. It has nothing to do with me. They'll just walk my land, or they'll take a shower, or just pick up some water. And like the water's just working miracles, has nothing to do with me. And so I was like, man, this is a sanctuary. It's a really cool place where people could just come and chill. And then I started watching like Donut and Paranoid American and all these kids that are decoders, Jordan, Logan, all these wonderful podcasts where they're decoding reality. And then shit started clicking for me really deep. And now I see water through the symbolism and the numerology and the gematria, and I see water on a whole nother level now. I can't even find anybody to talk to about it, to be quite honest. Because when I start trying to talk to people about it, there's a pause, which is fine. It's okay, come on, okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. And so the Sacred Healing Water Sanctuary is going to be hosting weekly events where we are going to have Decode Campouts. Because what I started learning and witnessing and experiencing for myself, in order to really write your own script and kind of break free of the matrix, whatever the words are. Words are so strange for me right now because of the etymology and everything. But in order to really thrive and write your own script, you have to be able to decode your reality. And that's what I love listening to Waters Above. He has a wonderful live stream of consciousness that really is able to look at different aspects about that. That's what's great about Logan, right? Decode your reality. He literally teaches you how to learn about yourself on a deeper level. And so I want to celebrate all these podcasts and I want to hang out with people. Some of the best part of these podcasts are the chat rooms where we get to hang out and talk and chat. And everyone's always saying, I wish we could get together, right? And so after the lockdowns, I had a couple water festivals because I was like, yeah, let's get together. I'll just do a water festival. And I was actually going to call it funny story. It's called the Truth Seekers Water Festival, which I allowed to dissolve after I heard Jordan talk about the word truth seeker. I was like, oh man, we got to be careful with words. We got to know the etymology. Anyways, but I almost called it the Gematria Water Festival. And I'm glad I didn't because I was just learning about Gematria. And I kind of knew about it from Dr. Horowitz, who wrote the book 528 Hertz. Um, oh gosh, 528 Hertz, the Key of Love. Oh gosh, it's one of the most important books. It was the book that really brought 528 to our awareness on how it heals DNA. So he's one of my superstars of the musical. Dr. Horowitz's. And so these are the kind of people I had speak at my water festivals. And through that experience of doing the water festivals, there was a lot of learning lessons, let's just say. But what I realized was, even though it was fun and it was exciting and we got together, once it was over, it was done. And it just, nobody really talked about it, or they were like, hey, let's go next year. And by then it loses momentum. And so I realized, gosh, we need something that's a little bit more consistent, that is on a weekly basis, and but easy, because throwing a festival like that, doing these kind of gigs, it's hardcore. And people that do vending in any kind of whether it's a Renaissance fair or a farmer's market, anybody that does any kind of vending like that will attest it's a lot of work. And so I realized I wanted to do something that's just very casual, very kickback, very comfortable, in nature, but kind of using technology in a positive way, where we're watching our fellow podcasters, decoding reality, talking online together, and really creating a really fun kind of weekly showcase of all the different information that's coming to light. And then also bringing forth solutions. We all have gifts and talents. We all have done something where we were hurt and we maybe put castor oil on a burn and it made it better. And so we want to share that solution. So I'm trying to create a way for us to gather in person and online, where we can do things in our own vibe with our own tribe in our own community, but sharing solutions that's universal, sharing information that helps all. That's how we even the playing field. That's how we empower the masses. Because if we really want to take these people down, you got to take your dollar away. And we got to learn how to become comfortable and happy, knowing what true happiness is, which is clean water. If you ain't got health, you ain't going to get wealth.
I agree. I agree. You mentioned also that your vision with the sanctuaries to have decode campouts. What does that look like?
So the Decode campouts are just going to be like Saturday, all day Saturday into Sunday night. Well, into Sunday, like Saturday night into Sunday, where we're just going to be gathering and having like an outdoor movie night screen set up. And then all throughout I have about 6.5 acres, all throughout the sanctuary, we'll have different education stations, creation stations, relaxation stations, because we have a therapy spa type of thing. We're going to have a slingshot area where you can learn how to shoot some slingshots. We're going to have a campfire area, and we're going to have a beautiful water bar with local organic fruits and vegetables. And so we want to create an experience where you can come alone, hang out with people, and just, barbecue, whatever you want to do. Bring your own food, or we'll have food here for purchase. And we'll also have like a free little snack bar with like popcorn and some fruits. But we'll set out for everybody. But it's mostly about getting together and talking and laughing and sharing. It's about playing games. It's about going outside. It's about just taking a drive, just driving to my house, just driving to the sanctuary is a phenomenal, beautiful experience. Just the drive is healing. And so it's about creating experiences, because true knowing, actual knowing, is through experiences. It's through having just like you could hear me all day long talk about floating. Hey, kitties, don't fight. Talk about floating in a river and how healing it is and how it opens up our central nervous system and how I have downloads. You can hear me talk about it all day long, but it's when you felt it That
Right.
was the shift. And so I want to create situations or experiences for people to have those kind of moments. It's important. We're not taking any things with us. We are taking our thoughts, memories, our joy. That goes with us. That's the essence of our being. And so I want people to have that experience as much as possible. We need to have an alternative for the young people to experience. We need to have block parties again. We need to have gatherings again. But with everything that I do, I have what's called an eco governance that is set in place. That's why it's a membership program, because upon hanging out, coming to our online events or in person events, you're agreeing to a certain set of standards and high integrity. Eco governance is an actual alternative governance that's been written by Ian and Shelley, who wrote the World Water Laws of 2020. These people are phenomenal. They wrote laws that they took to every country around the world to protect water as a sovereign being. And they did wonderful. It was very successful in many parts of the world. Well, now they wrote what's called an eco governance. And what this does, it allows people to form a governance for community. So right now, the government structure is national, state, local, right? Kind of does that. This is a inversion of that. So it empowers community, then that community, whatever they feel is best for them, then they take that to maybe it's the county, then they take it to the state, then it goes national. So what that does in times of emergency, like what our community just went through in Asheville, North Carolina, through Hurricane Helene, it allows the local communities to empower themselves by doing what needs to be done, not allowing government of people who do not even know the terrain of this area telling us what needs to be done, which would have killed many more if we listened to them. So, what this does, it helps people to learn how to communicate a governance amongst their community through bringing forth their information and sharing it. It's very simple because the powerful solutions, tools, and information are always simplistic. The
I agree.
twisted words, the chaos, the confusion, it's not of creator. So when people talk about this split occurring on the planet right now, it is. And you got to know how to see it, decode it in order to script your reality so you're not following the masses. Otherwise, they're going to put you all on trains and line you up. Don't get on the train. You know what I'm saying, bro. You know what I
I'm
mean?
with you. I'm with
So
you. Yeah.
this empowers us to be able to see it coming and then have correct response. And so the Decode Campouts, it has to be simplistic, it has to be fun, and it has to be a place where everybody can share information and gather solutions for their own journey. Because I'm not here to help anybody. Your path and your problems are none of my business. I cannot help the world, but what I can do is share solutions, share what works for me, but also let people understand and understand you have to do the work. You have to do the research. I could tell you about 4 or 5 different filters to use with your house or solutions, but it becomes your responsibility to know what works best for your area. Does that make sense?
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
So,
It's none of your business if they utilize the information you're giving. Your purpose is to give the information freely.
and this has become important as far as how do I share information with people I may disagree with? Really and truly, right? How, for example, how do we get the hood hanging out with the wood, right? How do we get the Democrats hanging out with the Republicans? How do we get the Christians hanging out with the Buddhists? How do we get the Muslims hanging out with the Jews? Do you see what I'm saying? How do we cross these bridges through peace and love? It's through honoring all by sharing solutions and then stepping away from the table. This is how it works. This is what it does. Here you go. You can research it. You cannot research it, and it's okay. Because water loves us so much and unconditionally that there are many solutions. But it takes us sharing them and sharing the wonderful websites like worldwatercommunity.com and sharing wonderful websites that have major solutions like Water Stories that has wonderful they work more on water solutions for like geographic, like topology and a bigger scale. So there's solutions for everything, but it takes us bringing it all together under one umbrella so we can find it in an easy capacity. I can't do this all in one festival. So by having the weekly Decode Campouts, it allows me to showcase 3 of the sponsors that have solutions, what I'm calling solution-oriented specialists, are SOS sponsors and stars of the Modern Day Healing Musical and our Decode Campouts. So we start introducing the people and solutions to our podcasters that are bringing forth scary stuff sometimes, right? And information you're going, what? This is reality? What am I supposed to do with this? I'm so angry right now. How do I even process? Right. So instead of going into that like raw, like what do I do with it kind of state, we're now going to give people the ability to learn about solutions and create a sack of solutions or a bug out bag. But that's the fear terminology. So that's the other reality. The our reality, we're going to create a stack of solutions. So wherever you go in life, you'll always be okay. How does that make you feel?
It's nice. It's such a grand vision, and it's such a beautiful vision that you have that your passion has brought forth. And one thing that you mentioned was how do we get, people from different backgrounds and areas of the world together? And I think that music is one way. You had mentioned music earlier, and you kind of hinted at like a modern day like healing musical that you're like writing behind the scenes. Would you like to share a little bit of that project?
Sure. So the modern day healing musical is very much an inverted to a higher frequency of basically Cirque du Soleil. Cirque du Soleil is one of my favorite, most all time. Like I wanted to join them back in the '90s. I remember like sending in a video where I like covered my body with glow sticks. I sang a song and I wanted anything because I'm very large and in charge. So I wasn't going to be doing the acrobats. Maybe a clown, but not the acrobats, right? So I just love Cirque du Soleil. I've seen every single one of their shows, except for the ones that are permanent in some locations. But something happened to me when I saw the last one, which was Echo, the newest one that was out like a year or two ago. I can't remember now. After doing the decoding, and this shifted my reality. This is when I was like, I'm done. Like I am done leaving my house. Kind of haven't left my house in 2 years, if I'm going to be really honest. I go out and run errands and stuff. I try to do things here and there, but I feel like everything is inundated with this demonic frequency shit. Just going nuts. And where I live, right? Because I'm learning about all this, especially after the hurricane, it's one of the most evil places on the planet Earth, unfortunately. And that, oops, just learned about that. And it's because of the family bloodlines that are here. And so, and we won't go into that. That is a whole nother podcast that we can talk
Yes.
about. But um, this is all kind of important because once I saw, number one, all of the symbolism in the show was Saturnalia cube worship. Okay. Number two, all the characters of the show were skeletons of animals, literally. Number three, the sponsor of the show for Echo, for Cirque du Soleil, was Liquid Death. And I was like, I almost walked out when I found that out. They tell people that in the beginning of the show. I found out that was their sponsor. I literally got nauseous. I started shaking and I'm looking around and people are clapping. I'm going, oh my God, where am I? It's that moment where you're like, where am I? What am I doing here? You know? But I was there and I paid for the ticket and it was a good seat. So I stayed. And as I stayed and watched my most favorite thing in the whole world become the most evil thing in the whole world in one show, I literally sat there and cried. And I was looking around in a sold out show of at least 1,000 people searching for one person that is seeing what I'm seeing. And everyone is just clapping away, happy as can be. And I'm sitting there just going, oh my God, this is the most evil shit I've ever seen. No, and I mean hardcore symbology, hardcore, bro. Spooky ass music, spooky. And I'm sitting here going, this is, and there's kids all in the audience. And I'm going, oh, this is not good. This isn't good. And then a lot of things were revealed to me after that show very shortly. That's when I was like, I'm done. I'm not going to any concerts. I'm not going to any musicals. I don't watch TV. I've literally sat in my house and pretty much just watched birds. Oh my gosh, my dog. I'm so sorry.
It's
Shh.
okay.
So sorry. There's a bug in the house that they're trying to catch. And so when I recognized that, I was just sad, right? I was just super sad. And like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, where do I go to talk to people or hang out or have friends? Then I started finding Donut. Donut was the first one I found. And then I started talking to people on chat online. And it was so fun. And I had that moment of like, wow, this is what it feels like to be happy. Literally. Because I was going through a lot of trauma, helping my family, my mom pass around the same time. And so I couldn't find joy in a life that I've loved so much, especially through the water's eyes when I started going down that journey. And so when I did the water festivals, so many pluses, but I learned a lot of lessons. But one of the main things that I witnessed and learned was the people that met each other and this community that was built, these friendships that were built, and the kids asking, when's the next water festival? When's the next? They had so much fun. It was how it was when we were kids, when we would go outside and play and had to be home before the street lamps when it was safe. You know what I mean? They had that experience and they felt it because of the community and the way the festival was. And so I've been to the Renaissance Festival. I've been on tour, like Grateful Dead tour. I've done a lot of things in my life where I've been around a lot of beautiful, loving communities, but there's just a couple things that were off or just I didn't want to stick around for their belief structure or whatever. And so as I started really just wishing, there was something else out there, I knew the festival wasn't the answer because it just wasn't frequent. So that's when I came up with the Decode Campouts. But then I started finding through traumas that I'm experiencing in my community and stuff, I started finding major solutions. And these major solutions, these major players, when I started putting them together, I was like, yo, this is an alternative city that's completely self-sufficient. And if we just made it like a Renaissance fair where there's a huge marketplace and sharing space around the show. So we have the show every evening, but then the marketplace and sharing space is open during the day like a normal city. And there's like school and classes and you can, go get your products or go get a healing session or, go over here and maybe they're working on music. But a way to let people come experience the different modalities, experience the different solutions in person, and in a way where it's in a self-healing, loving, and safe environment. No drugs, no alcohol, no Pepsi products. We're doing it with just the people that show up and bring forth their solutions. That becomes our traveling city that's completely self sufficient. We have our own sewer system through Origin Clear. They're the first water company that went up on the stock exchange stock market. Very important. And what they have would solve three or four of the city's sewer problems where they were washed away in the hurricane. And they're telling these people they can't flush the toilets for 4 years, brother. And that's supposed to be sufficient. I bring them a solution that is the size of a 18-wheeler tractor trailer called Origin Clear. And what they do is they take the waste of a location, whether it's a city or a hotel or a casino, just a large location or neighborhood, and all that sewer goes into this machine and they make it what's called potable water again, which can be used on like a garden or to flush toilets, these kind of things. Or it could be put back into the ground clean. It literally solves the problems of the septic sewer systems of America, the problems with all the piping and the water systems in America, and it stops the closed loop water systems where they're creating tainted poison tap water immediately. But no one wants to hear it. So I started wondering, how do we get this information out there? We have to create an alternative entertainment source, an alternative media source, an alternative education source, food source, water. It all has to be an alternative. Because if there's not an alternative society or reality for us to go to, we're fucked. We ain't going to Mars. It's the New World Order, or what's the alternative? That's why everyone's afraid. What's the alternative? Like, for reals. It ain't fucking USA. USA. You know what I'm saying, bro? I mean, I love it here and would not change anything in my life or anything about my life. But I want to go to other places. My brothers and sisters are around the world and I love them too. And the solutions work beyond borders. So if we write a musical, which the stars of the show are the solution-oriented specialists, not the people, the solutions are the stars, then we translate it into every language around the world immediately so it can be replicated like a theater show, Cats, or whatever. Then it can be harmonized through the bodies of water in every location around the world. Once we share this online, the 5G towers now become the 528 hertz towers. Everything they have built for destruction, they've actually built for us. We just have to recognize it and see it in the alternative. And then we create it so that it harmonizes and heals all bodies of water. Because when everybody has food, water, and shelter, what's next?
Uh, are you asking me? I don't quite know,
I don't
actually.
know either. No, I don't know either, brother.
Now, is this something that you'd like to promote through like the showcast you were mentioning?
Yes, so it's going to be a way for us to start introducing a lot of the solution oriented specialists. This is what's interesting. You know, a lot of people are like, Kim, just open up your sanctuary first. Kim, just build your website first, which I have been trying to do for a year. I've had to hire a couple different people. It's been an ordeal. But it's okay because you know what? I ain't got nothing but time. And so I've learned how to lovingly accept however this arises, right? And so with the showcast and with the Decode Campouts, it's going to allow me to really start showcasing my solution oriented specialists. So every week, I'll be introducing three of the specialists and three of the podcasters. You are one of them. You're bringing solution oriented specialists onto your show, are you not? And so I would be honored to be able to show your podcast at the Decode Campouts type of thing, right after Jordan, right before Logan, maybe after Donut. And so it allows us to really start bringing together this information under one umbrella, which is the Worldwide Water Tribe. We have an online community platform. And so this is going to allow us to have the sister satellite water sanctuary memberships so that I could teach people how to do this in their backyard, in their retreat center, or in their business, wherever they want. You can even go to a water park, meet everybody at a water park and have it once a month type of thing. You can design it however you want. The most important thing is coming together, breaking bread, laughing, sharing solutions, and creating experiences and memories for you guys to fulfill your life so you can thrive. It's when we start sharing our information, the currency stays within the tribe. That's what I want. Anytime I want a product, I would like to go to a source where I could be like, "Ooh, yeah, there's a cloud buster. I'm going to get that." Or here's a EMF frequency device because I'm about to go into a city and I'm about to be there for a bunch of time and I need something like this or whatever. Oh, this person's selling a life straw. Now I have a water filter anywhere I go type of thing. You see? And so it's going to help me teach others how to have sponsorships for their local area because I have a whole sponsorship tier too. You could be a local sponsor, which would put you on our map of experiences. So people's treasures are their experiences and not just buying stuff. And there's a lot of people around here that do kayaking tours, or they might do a pottery class, or they might have a that the zip line thing where people are actually having experiences. I've created a sponsorship way to enhance my local community and also put them on the map. The next level of sponsorship, you can just be a part of what we're doing and just be a sponsor, which puts you on the Vendors Village page. And if you ever come to an event, you get to set up for free. Or you could be a solution oriented specialist. Now, that sponsorship is an invite only because that person is going to be someone written into the musical. And so, as we bring these people into the musical, and I already have so many people interested. So many of the solution oriented specialists are ready. They're like, "Where's the website, Kim?" I'm like, "Well, it's being built." And so I know how that looks. That's why I haven't launched out into the public. I haven't done a big grand opening. I don't have my stuff all over Facebook. That time will come, but right now, once the website's done, then I can do the weekly showcast and the weekly meetings more consistently, because this is the thing: if you do not have a powerful foundation and if you do not take time to build a powerful foundation, it will crumble and dissolve faster than you can even comprehend. So it's taken me 2 years of building this foundation, and unfortunately when the hurricane hit, it has put a huge pause on it. I have about 20 trees down, so that's been what has caused me to have a huge pause. We had to pull the website down because I have to redo everything. We can't do campouts quite yet, so we have to do movie nights first. But I hope to be an example that, when you're thrown a curveball, you just got to step a little bit out and then swing. Because when life throws you curveballs, you just got to go with it. So what do I do? Close the sanctuary and close my dreams down, or do I wait? And this is me patiently waiting and teaching me how to build a powerful foundation, because when I go on tour with my musical, I want it to be a very successful, self-sufficient city. That is really important for me. I don't want to rely on getting, how can I say, my electricity or my sewage hookups from the city. That's not how this tour is going to go. This tour is going to be more oriented to where we go to people's properties that have the same conscious understanding and structure. For example, and then I'm going to pause. I quit going to festivals and I quit going to shows. And I keep trying to. It's so funny. Like I'll find a show and be like, oh, there's a lot of conscious speakers here and blah, blah, blah. And I'll try to go. But then they'll have it at a location where it's being inundated by frequency, or the water's super, super tainted, or it's just really off. And so it made me realize, even if I want to participate in something, you have to be very careful and know the source of things, of what you're participating in. I feel like everything's a spell nowadays. You know what I mean? And so, how do I create an environment that's safe for everybody? That's not a cult.
That's not a
I
cult.
mean,
Yeah.
that sounds crazy, but it's true. And so, what I have found, it's simply water. Like, everyone needs clean water. Everyone needs solutions to know how to either find water, clean water, harvest water, store water. But when we start sharing the solutions, it breaks down these weird walls that have been constructed for us through programming. And that's my goal and hope and dream in writing this musical and bringing it forth. I know when people say, Kim, you should just do one thing at a time. I wish I could. It has nothing to do with how I want it or want things done. The water brings forth what the water wants done, period. And I have learned to be a co creator in this. And I have learned that the vision can change, it can shift, and it's okay. And I've learned that it can be replicated and shared in every language around the world. And I'm giving it to the kids. And that's why it's so on my heart to create it as a musical, teaching the kids how to be on their own hero's journey, how to do their own research, how to decode their own reality, then how to find solutions, do the research, and how to be able to do the language of water to know when they have found the truth and when it's good for them, because it's different for everybody. And so we have found a way to have a fun, joyful journey of a young man or woman, right? Or both. It's going to be a cast of characters going through life where hardcore things are happening at them, and kind of like what Disney's doing, right? Let's look at Disney, that satanic bullshit piece of crap. And what they're doing in programming the kids, we're doing that, but we're inverting it and doing it the opposite, which is showing, like, we're showing something scary. Okay, because this is what Disney does. They trap the children's consciousness when the parent dies. That's when they trap the kid in the storyline. Okay, when the death occurs, and then it pulls them into a certain frequency, and that's when the programming starts happening. Well, fuck that shit. Instead, we're going to show the kids, like, hey, something scary is going to happen, but boom, here comes the solution. The solution arises in the story, and that becomes the powerful moment, and that becomes the end of the scene, is the solution. So the kid always walks away with a win and a solution on how to fix this, or how to get away, or how to, whatever the part of the story that is. And then when we teach them how to build their sack of solutions, wherever they go in the world, they will always be okay, through living a life of high integrity, honor, discipline with love, compassion, and empathy. That's the true path of a peaceful warrior. And we need every person to step into that for their own safety and for their own life. And when we all do, something very powerful on the planet is going to occur. But we all have a part to play in it. So let's create an alternative reality where we can find the solutions in order to write our own script, so we're not being programmed and enslaved by the one being forced upon the masses.
It's powerful. You mentioned that the waters need us now. What does that mean to you? What's going on?
Like, this is a deep one. Because I know how it sounds. I know how I sound. I know how all of this sounds.
You sound completely
Listen,
sane to me.
I come from, a place. I come from a place where theatrical was a way of being, right? Hollywood is a different beast, literally. And so they're really, really good at, how can I say, the illusion, right? The illusion that something's cool, or the illusion that a song is a really cool song, and you start listening to the lyrics, you're like, what am I saying? What am I singing? What's happening? What's going on? And so what they're doing to us, they're doing to the water. But what they're doing to the water is worse, because the water is not looked upon as a living being. It's an element, or it's matter, or it's always missed. When people talk about solutions of the earth, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's political, I don't care if it's medical, I don't care if it's educational. Water is always in that solution somewhere, 100,000% every single time. And so, what they're doing to the water right now, they're doing to us. How they're manipulating the water is how they're trying to manipulate us. And so, the water needs our help, because if we don't start having a conscious connection to the source of our water, to water itself, the next war on the planet is over water and the consciousness that water is. Because if you knew what I knew about water and how it communicates instantaneously anywhere around the world, you would understand what they're doing with this genetic shit in the blood. Because once they got your blood, whatever they do to it in a lab, it communicates that back to your blood immediately. Because all water communicates instantly. This is a scientific experiment that can be proven. So if we do not help the waters, the consciousness of the waters will get to a certain percentage where it cannot be fixed. However, the good news is the water, because it is consciousness, will never let that happen. But we must partake in the co-creation through choosing words of love and kindness, allowing love to be the actual weapon in certain situations, and being guided by a higher integrity than what's being done at you. Because when the storm hits, I'm going to talk about this very briefly because I get way too triggered and I get charged, but this is important. The storm that hit Western North Carolina, that they called a hurricane, was created on multiple ways for multiple reasons, and the biggest spiritually. It was a portal that was held in one location over the mountains for 7 hours straight. The only way you can control a storm and it not move is if there's magnetism in the clouds and the mountains are crystalline structured. And so what they did here and what happened here, and this is why you don't hear about it on the news, nobody knows what's happening here, nobody knows it was the worst biblical storm of not the century, of our existence, and what they were doing and what they were going for, because they have completely swept it under the rug. Nobody's here helping us. There's no government here. There's no National fucking Guard helping us find the dead people in the water under piles and piles and piles of debris. There's thousands of people missing. And a lot of people try to dispute that. Well, let me tell you something. The homeless people who got it the worst because they camped out by the fucking rivers. And all the people that were going down feeding the homeless people that knew these people by name because they were good human beings that just didn't have a fucking house were swept away and killed in that fucking storm. Because when they started feeding the homeless people again, 75% of them were gone. And they weren't even accounted for. And that's not even including the people that lost their houses, that were floated downstream in places that water has never been before. And that's when I heard the screaming of the waters. And they're going to do this over and over and over again. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse if we do not fucking come together and work together as a community. And the only way that we will be okay is when we turn to each other and lovingly help one another, sister and brother. And you better know how to decode reality and see the symbolisms that they are wearing when they're telling you to go down a certain road to certain death, to know not to listen to these people simply by the symbology on their fucking badge. If that star is turned upside down, you better listen to those words and do the opposite. Not joking. And so how do I help people understand this? Same thing with the fires. They can make rain, but they don't put out the fires. Fuck them. And whoever them is, I don't know, right? Like we're not going down that whole path. But what I do know is this, brother. There are solutions. You will always be okay if you know how to read the signs and symbols. And so if we do not help the water cannot help us, because if you do not know how to communicate and see the rising of the waters and run, nobody can help you. But you have got to see the signs and the symbols. Excuse me. I need some water.
Go ahead, please.
The signs and the symbols are in nature. It is seen. It is clear. Just like in the beach when the tidal wave hit and there's no water all of a sudden, run. Run to the highest point as fast as you can. But nobody talks about this stuff anymore. Nobody talks about how to read a situation in the environment. Nobody talks about these things. Nobody talks about, like, what do you do if this kind of thing occurs? Because they have us distracted on so many levels. And their best form of distraction is to put us against one another. That's why when you come to the sanctuary, it's a sanctuary for that purpose. My flat earth motherfuckers and my round earth motherfuckers are going to hang out together and play and have a good time. We're going to kick a ball and throw a frisbee. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we have got to make it so that we can come together, hang out, have difference of opinions, and still have a good time and still have each other's back. Because the way that they're putting us against each other in every way, it's unnecessary. So let's undo the programming and let's write the script so that we are helping all waters, which then helps everybody because everybody is water.
So you mentioned scripting and like scripting your outcome. What advice would you have for a person to go about doing that? Because, some may see the ideas that you're speaking of now as like a pipe dream, but you have successfully gathered a collective prior to the hurricane, so you do have the capability to do it once again and at a more powerful rate. I'm sure that scripting that assisted in creating that into being. So if you have any advice how to go about scripting an outcome for someone that's trying to manifest something in specific, what would be your advice?
Oh, wow. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's a time to share and tell the world and shout from the rooftops, but in the dreaming into being stages before it manifests onto the planet, let's say, there's a time to pause and work on your script and really kind of dial it in and really allow it to the time to manifest to come to you. You know, there's a couple different points that we're going to make right now that are really really important. How do you know when thoughts are original or when thoughts are being placed into your mind as a program? How do we know? How do we know when that is occurring at us, when thoughts are occurring at us, which a lot of times will affect our emotional or internal dialogue? And how do we know when thoughts are original, coming from creator source? I have found for my experience that dreaming, going into imagination where, you know, maybe you're in a life that has been part of the old program, right? Who you were born as. Maybe you got married, had kids, or your family is just, they're part of the old program. And then you start going through this process in your life where you kind of start waking up or start realizing things and start putting pieces together and seeing reality at what I call a heightened version, actually, being able to see the multiple dimensions simultaneously, being able to feel the multiple frequencies at the same time, much like a symphony, being able to really have this, I would say, more sensitive perception with life, allowing yourself to wish life was different. Like, I'll just use my own example for purposes to be quick. When my mom was dying, and it was not a quick process, you have to be there. As much as it's sad and you wish you weren't there and you wish you could be doing something else, there's also this part where of course you would never go anywhere else. You're honored to be there. You love, in a sense, almost being there because you just want to lovingly help and support, but that could become one of the worst times of your life. So how do you get through it when you can't leave? How do you get through it when you're stuck? How do you get through it when you can't just change your reality, right? Well, for me, I started dreaming in the shower, in my therapy spot, putting my feet just in a body of water. And I would allow myself, if I wasn't here now, what would I do? If I had $1 million, what would I do? If I could do this, what would I do? Right? And I start doing that where I'm feeling the joy in what I would do. And it's through that feeling process, that dreaming process, that allows one to have a glimpse of what if maybe I could, if I would, type of thing. And so I would say the more you dream about the life that you want, the more the solutions arise, the more that type of energy kind of flows to you. There was many times these past couple of years, no joke, where I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Their website people are screwing me. I'm not doing this. This is too hard. I'm not right. You go into this like, oh, I'm not doing this. Like like this was a big one too. When people close to you who are cool with you one minute you go through a hurricane, kind of go through trauma, and now they're like, "Oh, you're crazy, Kim, you're crazy." Like, how do you process that? You're like, "Wait a minute, I'm not crazy. I'm just hitting a glitch, or I'm hitting a wall. I have to redirect or whatever." What you do is you go into observation mode, you go into prayer, and you stay there in a peaceful, joyful way. How do you do that? If you're in a sad situation or you're just struggling day by day, it's through gratitude. I saw this wonderful study done with water that would crystallize the water structure or make the blood more buoyant and aerobic so it wasn't sticky and globbly through not just prayer, but through actual create, like the humming, the joy, the the frequency of joy literally heals DNA and will unravel it and bring it back to the original perfected state and structure. That's 528 hertz, or the sound of the sun, or the sound of beehives in the sound frequency. It's the color green, like a lime green, like when things are first blooming in spring, in the light frequency. And so that's why joy is a key when dreaming how you want your life to be. It's the frequency of stabilization in your water structures. If it's not built at a frequency of love or above, because joy is actually above the love frequency, it's a higher frequency than love. Love stabilizes everything. Love gets us to a place of no judgment. But joy gets you to the place of creation. Like sex, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, woohoo, baby, here's a baby, here's a bee. Like, so, like, that's what you got to think of when you think of acts of creation. It's the joy frequency. So allow yourself to dream, and writing your script is literally dreaming it into being the way you want it to be and see. Like, I'll use this little example. The musical tour that I want to go on tour with, if it connects to an electrical grid, it's not going on tour, in my opinion. I will absolutely have a solar company who will be a solution oriented specialist, who will be just an amazing way that we produce our electricity with some other plasma devices. And we're going to not just be our own electrical grid. When we leave, we're leaving that behind so they can now have an electrical grid off of the grid. Do you see what I'm saying? The solutions that we bring forth, it's so that we can live harmoniously with the grid or without. It's not about stopping the government or taking over. It's about just having an alternative reality. So think of when you're scripting your life, that's what you're doing. You're almost living two lives, and you have to be cool with it. The person or the version that you're becoming, that you're dreaming yourself to be, Water Woman Kimberly. Water Woman! Just kidding. Right? Dreaming it into being, choo, 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 bringing all the solutions to town, Water Woman. Or, it's probably and more right now. Also, Kimberly, who was born as a triple Scorpio on this day with this name. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's that program, Kimberly, who's slowly actually dying. And I'm not that version of myself anymore. So I have to make room or script the new version of me that I want to be or become, but lovingly having grace and compassion for myself, that right now I'm going to be in both worlds, and that's okay. And so I would say some of the biggest things that I have learned in this process: lovingly allowing, just allowing yourself to be where you're at in the moment, and it's okay. And the power of dreaming it into being. And be careful who you share your dreams with, because if someone says, "You can't do that, you're crazy, that's not going to happen," they have just fucked up your whole script or how it's like manifesting in the universe. And they just threw a wrench into it. So you got to be careful in how you share. And if somebody shuts you down and they're like, like quiet down or, you know, learn your place or don't be you, then it's a beautiful opportunity to love everybody right where they're at, take a step back, go into observation mode, and then dream it into being how you want it to be better. Does that make sense? So you have an option to be a co-creator in the reality that was kind of handed to you. And as you lovingly allow that reality and dream a new existence into being, you now are creating a bridge because that's what our generation is. We are the bridge. We're the rainbow bridge that was prophesied by many, many, many different cultures and tribes. And that bridge looks like this. We're going to help people find the alternative. But in order for other people to find the alternative, to help our family see the lines in the sky or what they're doing to us, whatever the script is, right? Whatever they're forcing on the masses, whatever vax is around the corner, in order to help our loved ones, we have to do it in a way where we're putting solutions on the table and walking away and then going into prayer. Prayer is the most powerful thing. And that's why when we start harmonizing all waters through frequency and prayer, can't touch this. Dun, 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 can't touch this.
Let's talk about some water magic. I know that you have a few techniques. You actually told me through a DM to place my feet in some water, something like that. What do you got for me? What is something that we can do, if not tonight, tomorrow morning?
There's a lot of really wonderful different cultural and traditional and even religious ways to work with water and communicate with water. And so any way that you can connect with that water, whether it's like in a shower or putting your feet in a puddle or in a river or maybe a bowl of water, um, any way of connecting is beautiful. One of the favorites that I do almost every morning, I'm not going to say it's every single morning, but almost every
Mhm.
morning, is I will take a clear glass, no color, no writing on the glass. And in my bare feet, I will go outside in the beginning of the morning. I will, oh, honey, stop, honey. I will go outside. I'll hold my glass up to the sun with my feet on the ground, and I will just say my universal water prayer, and then maybe some intentions, or maybe I don't know what to do for the day. I'll be like, hey, if I can get some guidance, or anything of communication with my creator. Um, I put into the waters, and that, in a sense, is making your own holy water for the day. And you can drink that water. You can then add that water. Dottie, stop. You can then add that water to what you're cooking. You could add it through your water bottles throughout the day. You could put it in your maybe container that you're watering plants with. And so you're basically taking just a couple of drops of water, and when you add it to any other water source, as soon as you add those drops, it instantly communicates that information to the water, and then that whole vat of water, vessel of water, is now infused with that information. This is why you hear a lot of the scientists talk about how water has memory. They're also finding in the computer industry that water is actually even better than crystals when it comes to storing information because of its ability to not just hold crystalline structure, but to do it in a liquid and even vaporous form. And so remember, you are all structures of water. Your blood is a crystalline structure, your breath is the vapor structure, and the um, waters within, like the brain and even in the cells, are a liquid. It's basically a liquid crystal. And so maybe not ice in there, but there is crystalline structure in every being. And so as we connect with our water and as we start putting our love and prayers into the waters, always understanding that is always going to be communicated to your waters within as well. So it's a way to kind of just start your day. Um, I've had people say, well, I do that without water. I just pray every morning. And that's great. It's however you want to create it, however you want to um, take the time to just start your day. And here is a part of that: writing your script. This is you co-creating, writing your script. I like putting it up to the sun. I feel like that is a form of frequency information coming from creator source for that day. And having my feet on the ground, I feel like when I'm holding the water, there's a beautiful torus effect that's occurring on a magnetism level that is where the earth, the cosmos, light, water is all coming together in that one vessel and location. And so this is there's a lot of different ways in different religions to make holy water. Some people also add salt to the water, and that's also very beautiful. So I would just like to encourage people to maybe take a moment to look at your belief structure, your religion, and what you have going on in your walk of life, and see where water kind of fits in with some of that, and maybe look at a lot of the stories now in a different light or perspective that come from your culture, religion, or faith, and where the water talks about certain parts of the story or teachings throughout what you believe. Um, that's one thing why for me water is creator consciousness. When people started sharing their water stories with me, what they did in their religion, what their grandmother did when they were sick, just I can't tell you the plethora of beautiful healing stories of water. That's when I started recognizing how the truth about water literally is connected in every religion, culture, faith around the world. If you look at water and the stories around water, you will find that's where truth is. And so everything that I build, create, and do, it's in what I call the water creator consciousness matrix, which is still honoring the man made matrix, but not being led or programmed as my main form of foundation. For me, that is water. And that is water creator consciousness. And I just encourage people to figure out for themselves what that communication looks like for you, and look into and kind of feel out how water is alive, conscious, and has the ability to communicate at a cellular level instantaneously. Pay attention to the signs and symbols within your own body and the communication that's occurring at a cellular level. Don't negate or just say, "Oh, that's nothing." Start paying attention. We're programmed, and we've been programmed to forget how to do the language of water, but we all do it naturally and innately. But when you start doing it consciously, then the co-creation of your environment becomes easier, and especially when you find that flow state. Once you find that flow state, that's where manifestation can occur as soon as it's spoken. Um, but you got to feel it. You got to feel it into being, right? You got to dream it into being. So have fun, whatever it is, just finding how to do your own water ceremony or prayers, whatever words work best for you.
That's powerful. Before I let you go, I would like for you to lead us into a prayer that I guess is something that all of us can say just to get started with, right?
Sure.
If yeah, something that may be simple enough to remember, but yet powerful enough to make a change, right?
I love that. Um, Again, I always like to open and close with our universal water prayer. And before I go and say it, I'll just explain very briefly why we use that as our universal prayer. It's something that is very simplistic. It's understood in every language around the world, and it's always for the to help or make better the body of water. That's not just speaking it, but radiating that out to all bodies of water around them, whether it's their community, their families, their oceans, their rivers. And so this prayer works for everything and anything, um, especially if you're having how can I say this? Especially in the transition phase. This is a very loving and healing prayer that I believe brings forth the angelic realms and beings to lovingly help us in these times. So, that being said, the universal water prayer that we like to share with everybody, and of course, include whatever words you want or whatever you might want to add to it, and maybe even sing a song with it. But anything that we can do to lovingly help the water be its original, perfected state of creation, allows the water to go back to that structure so that we can transcend time and space, utilizing our words and prayers to lovingly help anybody, anywhere, at any time, mostly ourselves. So, that being said, let's go ahead and grab that cup of water and hold it up to your heart. And we're going to finish with the words of love, gratitude, harmony, healing, conscious awakening for all beings.
I love it. Kimberly, it was truly a pleasure to have you on today. The information you provided was just so valuable, And I wish you well in your endeavors that you have. I know that you will succeed, and I honor your mission.
Thank you, brother. It's been so fun talking with you and just flowing with you. And I'm excited to maybe sometime in the future jump back on with you. When I'm up and going on my Decode campouts, we'd love to have you come on live and share on your podcast anything that you would like with the Worldwide Water Tribe, because you're going to have a very successful podcast. You create a
Thank you.
safe space for people to share, and man, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you. So thank you. It's been such an honor. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. You have a great night. We'll speak
Thank
soon.
you. Indeed.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.